Alright, what's going on, guys? Trev back again, here to bring you another video. This one's going to be doing a throwback review, as promised, to what might be one of the most important episodes of The Walking Dead ever. Certainly one of my favorite episodes of The Walking Dead ever. This is for The Walking Dead Season 3, Episode 12. This is for Clear. So as promised, I wanted to go ahead and do this video tonight as a review for you guys because we do not have our regular, episodes of The Walking Dead on right now after 8 weeks. The first half of The Walking Dead Season 8 is over. So I wanted to go back and take a look at this one since we got the announcement that Lennie James, who of course plays Morgan in The Walking Dead, is going to be crossing over between The Walking Dead series and Fear the Walking Dead. Now what does that mean? Does that mean that Fear the Walking Dead is going to skip forward in the story by a couple years or a few years to sync up and Morgan will still be alive? Or do we think that maybe Morgan could be killed off in Season 8 in the second half of All Out War, this next half, and then we will see him in a prequel capacity, probably before his time in Fear, or probably before his time in The Walking Dead in Clear. So between Season 1 and where we see him here in Season 3 for Clear. So those are pretty much the two competing theories right now as to what this is going to look like for Morgan to cross over from The Walking Dead to Fear, whether it be after the events of The Walking Dead, so he leaves the group and he survives, and then he runs into the Fear group and, something happens with them in the future after a time skip, or it's a prequel between Season 1 and this episode in Clear Season 3. So we'll see which one it turns out to be, but I think this definitely makes a lot of sense to take a look back at this this classic episode. So if you guys don't know, if you haven't been, watching the channel since the third season, if you, started watching the videos later on, totally cool. Clear is one of my absolute favorite episodes ever. If there's still anybody left that's subscribed to the channel, that was back in Season 3 when it premiered. I did a review of it, that week, right after the usual thing every Sunday night when it airs, and I was absolutely blown away by this episode. Now, this is such a cool episode in Season 3. This is one where it's kind of, different. It's kind of an episode where you can watch. It's very Governor Woodbury versus prison story esque, but it's kind of like an offshoot of it because in this one we see Rick, Michonne, and Carl, and we don't see the prison or Woodbury or any of the other characters from any of those, and we see them go to find some guns that they can use against the governor in the battles that are kind of ongoing and sort of the confrontation or the rivalry between the prison group and Woodbury. So in this one we see Rick and the others, they leave in order to go find some guns. They go back to King County, which is where Rick was originally from. So this is kind of our first time after the first few years after Rick left that we actually get to see him go back there, and of course he runs into Morgan, which is just fantastic. So this is, without a doubt, it used to be in my top 10. At one time, it was like my favorite episode. It really was. At one time, this was my favorite episode of Walking Dead. Now that Morgan has come back kind of, all the time, and he's kind of a regular, I don't hold it in as high of regard as I used to, but I probably should, because really, this episode is fantastic. So we start the episode off, we get to see kind of the recap of kind of where the season is at and what's going on with that. And pretty much what it is you see, the death of Lori, you got Rick, he's not in a great mental state, you got the stuff with the governor going on, Michonne is just kind of joined, so she hasn't been, with the group very long. This is kind of her first full season where she's actually, in it. She appears at the end of Season 2, and you see Carl, and he's just like, man, he's so young at this time, it's so crazy. And there's actually some really cool stuff in here for Carl that even kind of, you could look at as influencing his behavior later on. Like recently in The Walking Dead Season 8, he helps out Sadiq, who is kind of like just this random guy who's kind of out there. In this episode, we see a hitchhiker who kind of runs up the road, and he's begging Rick, Michonne, and Carl to help him. So he's running down, he's yelling, hey, please, I'm begging you. And they pretty much just drive off and leave him there, but he continues to kind of run just in the off chance that he can catch up to them. They do get stuck in some mud. with Michonne driving, and they have to kill off some zombies, and he actually does kind of get pretty close, and then they drive off again. So afterwards, when they come back, they see that he has been killed, or he's been eaten by some zombies, and they actually take his pack that's kind of left there afterwards. So you could kind of look at it as maybe in this one, Carl realized that if you don't help people, there's a cost to that, because next time they might not make it, they might not survive, they might be dead. So it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool to think about. And so the opening credits and everything, the retro intro, it's so nostalgic for me at this point to watch. It's almost painful. You guys know when it's like you watch something that's so nostalgic. I mean, it's been like 5 years or almost 5 years since this episode, because it's in the second half of season 3. But for me, it's so crazy, because I remember when it first hit, all those years ago, I used to live at my parents' house, and, doing the reviews and stuff like that. I'm sure a lot of you guys can think when this season was on and when it came out. It's so painfully nostalgic. Like, I love it, but at the same time, it just puts me in like this mind warp. You see Andrew Lincoln, of course, who plays Rick. You see Denai Greer, who plays Michonne. You see Chandler Riggs, who plays Carl. And it's just like, wow, they just look, even the clothes they could be wearing are very similar. Like Andrew Lincoln's clothes are very similar now as to what they were then, like a khaki type of shirt and that kind of thing. But it's just so crazy, nostalgic for me, and just so strange to kind of see them, because you almost forget that that's what they looked like 5 years ago. It's just so younger and everything. It's so nuts, man. So so we got that. We start off, we got the Aaron we tried for Stone Mountain Jay, and then we see one of the zombies later on has kind of an Aaron bracelet around, so we can assume that whoever that sign was for, or whatever, was actually, didn't make it. So we got the retro intro. So the intro by itself is so different from what it is now. You got like the Browns and, kind of the very, it really did feel, can I say like it felt more like a zombie apocalypse than it does now? I don't know. I don't think that makes sense, but there's just something that feels different about it. The theme is different, and it's more of kind of like I don't want to say like a horror-based theme, but it's more the theme and everything. Even the soundtrack, the score, and everything is more like horror-based. Like it's kind of like more classic horror movie-esque, I want to say, than sometimes the modern Walking Dead is all the way through into season 8. So retro intro, really crazy. You see the credits and everything like that. It's nuts, man. Then we go to King County. So we're in King County, and we get to see all these awesome environmental shots. And that's one of the things I love most about this episode. Because sometimes in The Walking Dead, earlier on seasons, it felt like we were stuck in some locations, and we didn't get to see a lot of the zombie apocalypse. We didn't get to see a lot of different environments or a lot of different communities. Sometimes it felt like we were either stuck at Woodbury, we were stuck at the prison, we were stuck on the farm. This one's really cool to just kind of open up the zombie apocalypse world. You get to see them go there, and just all kinds of really cool shots of the environment. You can see a lot of the kind of signs or paint that kind of Morgan has put up, where you get to see a lot of clear in the background written a lot of times, or on cars and stuff. Away with you. You see the bodies that have been burned, the dead, and people that he has cleared, and it's kind of an ominous, crazy feel as you're kind of walking in. You see it. It's just really cool. They find out that the gun locker has been cleaned out, and Rick is super pissed. And so they decide to just go and get whatever guns they can, around town that he knew, about the permits and where the guns would be. So bars and things like that. So they head out, and before too long, they find Morgan's kind of a booby-trapped street. Which is still really cool to see nowadays, because it's just so elaborate. You got like the animals in the cages and stuff like that. They're going to lure in the walkers. You've got all the skewers and stuff like that set up so that the zombies that are walking get caught and get hit. And then you have them kind of walking through, and you've got Morgan on the top of the roof who comes out and yells hands at him, right? So that's really cool. So he shows up, very exciting. Rick fires the first shot, and then you have Morgan who kind of comes down. Michonne tries to go up and get him. Rick kind of comes around, and Carl kind of hides off at the side. And when Morgan's coming down going after Rick, he has like almost no ammo left. Carl is actually the one who gets him, which is cool. He comes out and he shoots him, right? Which is really, really wicked. Don't ever be sorry, son. So That's, I mean, it's really cool. It's kind of like, I want to say with Carl, maybe it's like a part where they were kind of going a more similar kind of route with Carl as they had in the comics, where he was maybe a little bit more badass or a little bit more kind of cutthroat or something of the sort. It's just really cool that you have Rick in there, you have Michonne in there, and Carl's the one that's able to land on Morgan and shoot him. But they find out he had body armor on. They take off the mask, and Michonne's kind of asking, like, do we care? And Rick's like, yeah, so really cool as we find out that it is actually Morgan who's been shooting at them. So they bring him upstairs. They get to see some of the booby traps, the welcome mat, and that kind of stuff. And they kind of just lay him down. You see all kinds of crazy writing on the walls. So people can interpret lots of different ways. People turning and turned. There's even like Eugene's on there. His name's on there. So I don't know how you want to read that, right? And some of the others that are in there, it's just, it's really crazy. You see burnt out for Rick's house and some of the parts of King County there. It's kind of destroyed. We're eating his food now, right? And there's the protein bar one. So you got Michonne, she's eating his protein bar. Really funny. And then remember how they came back to that in season 6, which I really loved. And then Carl wants to get a crib for Judith. So Michonne decides that she's going to help. And again, we can't really trust her right now. She's still kind of new. We're just kind of not sure what that looks like. Then you've got kind of the rifle that Rick's kind of checking, and Morgan waking up. So here's when things, I want to say, get really good. And here's the part where I want to say it makes this one of the kind of all-time great Walking Dead episodes, or one of the best character episodes The Walking Dead's ever had. Right up there for Morgan with the stuff that they did with John Berthal as Shane, say the last one, some of his episodes, and that really getting to kind of feel from Morgan and what's happened to him throughout the zombie apocalypse as things have kind of gone through. So he wakes up, and then you've got him. He kind of attacks Rick, and Rick kind of pushes him off, and they're kind of in a getting ready to fight. And Morgan does not really recognize Rick, or at least in his insanity, he doesn't notice that the person he's attacking is one of the only people left in the whole world that actually knows him, or that actually probably cares about him and is willing to be nice to him and try to help him if even after he kind of attacks them and everything. Rick and the others don't just kill him. He actually tries to help him and kind of talk him out of whatever's going on, or let him know that he can kind of join with them, and probably offer him the chance to come back with them. And it's fantastic. I mean, it's just two characters talking. That's pretty much it. They fight, they talk. People wearing... So Rick is trying to convince him that he knows him, right? You know me. And then you have Morgan who says back to him, people wearing dead people's faces. Morgan, you know me. You don't clear. You just turn. And then Rick, you know me. I don't know anyone anymore. And then that's when he stabs Rick. So it's fantastic. My only complaint in the entire episode is probably that the knife looks like it goes in too far. Like the knife looks like it would have killed Rick at that moment. So that's my only gripe with it. I would have been okay if it went in a little bit and then kind of got knocked out or something, and kind of bled. That would have been okay. It does look like it goes in all the way, which is obviously it can't do, because if it did, Rick would be dead there, right? But so that's my only gripe about the whole thing. Aside from that, I mean, I love this dialogue here, and part of this is why we wanted to kind of do a throwback review for this one, is the lines we've just gone over. So people wearing dead people's faces. So I want to say, I think that when this was written, I don't know, I'd have to look back to compare the dates, but I think this was before the Whisperers were even in the Walking Dead comic book series. I'm pretty sure it was. I'm pretty sure that this precedes the Whisperers even becoming a thing, where they actually do wear zombie skins, or they do wear dead people's faces. So I'm not sure if you could say that maybe that's where Kirkman got the idea for the Whisperers from, which, hey, we should actually have a group that does wear dead people's faces. I don't know. I don't know if that's what happened here, but it's one of those kind of like, kind of theories. It's a big theory for Walking Dead that Morgan ran into the Whisperers, and they kind of left him in some kind of crazy state. They left him in some kind of mistrusting, kind of deranged, kind of not trusting anybody, not understanding, not even trusting his eyes. So he sees people, he sees things, and he doesn't even trust that it's real. He gets into a state where we see him encounter Rick here, and he doesn't even think it's Rick. Like, he knows it looks like Rick, it seems like Rick, but he can't accept or absorb that it actually is Rick. So is this just Morgan in his insanity saying this, or has he actually encountered some of the Whisperers, or has he encountered somebody that left him so traumatized after what he had seen, what he saw, that he just doesn't even trust to believe that that's Rick and that it's possibly somebody else, or is he just lost his mind entirely and doesn't even know what he's saying and is kind of like, just going crazy, that kind of thing. Because that's the way we all interpreted it at first, is that Morgan is losing his mind, right? But there's always some kind of like, even when you encounter somebody that's losing their mind, when you reduce it down enough, you dissect it down. If you look back on their life, you look back on things that happened to them earlier, you can start to see where these kind of things started to occur, where you have people that kind of go off the rails at some point or in some way. And if you trace it back, you find that there's some kind of origin, usually tied to pain in some way, that takes people into these kind of mindsets. Unless you're dealing with like a hardware problem, like if someone has actually something wrong with their brain, then okay, maybe in that case it might not be an event that happened or a choice they made in their lives that brought them into this kind of path. It could be just something as a byproduct of them, their brain not working properly, them seeing things and things like that. You get these schizophrenic and stuff like that. So anyway, really, really cool stuff. Some of the most intense lines of the series, and I really like this idea. I really like how this fits, and I really like the idea of them killing Morgan off, switching to Fear, prequel. That's my favorite. If I have to choose one after seeing this episode back, that would be my favorite way to go. And you could even have Morgan in the series for probably a little while, be it a season or a couple seasons or something, and that would fit in terms of time frame. It'd still be okay in terms of time frame without it, but he's got to be traumatized at the end like crazy, right, to end up in the clear state. So that's that. So we get that, we get some cuts to commercials, that kind of stuff after the stab. And then you have Rick that kind of counters and puts a gun to his head, and then Morgan begs for him to kill him, similar to Negan recently in the Walking Dead comic book series. So that's kind of cool. But the biggest thing here I want to say is the acting, man. I mean, Lennie James, and Andrew Lincoln as well too, but Lennie James, this is a spotlight on him really because we haven't seen him for so long. Rick is always there, so he doesn't get as much credit as he probably should because he's just like a stable. He's always there, stable of the show. He's always there for us to see. But this is such a special one for Lennie James for Morgan because he just really delivers all these lines just brilliantly, especially with his face, everything. Just amazing. Getting to hear the story about what happened to Dwayne. So we find out what happened to him, what happened to his not like me, not like my boy. And there's my kind of southern. There's southern Trev for you guys, right? It's terrible, I know. Canadians, we're not that good at doing these accents, right? So we've got the radio as well too. So there's a conversation about the radio. You said you'd turn your radio on every day at dawn, right? And you were not there. I love it. I was. I love that. Looks like I finally found you. So then you have more. So Morgan feels overall like Rick has abandoned him. Rick got pushed out further. He found his wife. He found his boy. And Morgan's like, "Oh, that's great. Good for you." And especially, it's kind of crazy to watch now because Lori was dead, and now Carl is dead too, which it's even still surprising for me to even like factor into the story here is what we're seeing happening in season 8. I had to keep them safe. So you didn't have to see that then, right? So pretty much Morgan say like you didn't have to see your wife and your son die like Morgan did, right? Like he did with Dwayne, and the story about I see red, everything I see is red, right? And I do it. So again, just the way he delivers these lines, it's some of the best stuff. It's some of the best acting in the whole series, I want to say. It's really amazing. It really, really is. And it's part of what I think established The Walking Dead as one of the biggest series on TV. Episodes like this, if it wasn't for episodes like Clear and some of the other special ones we've had throughout the show, the series would have never gotten to the height of popularity that it has. Okay, so then he talks about kind of the weaker people and about the ones that die or the weaker people inheriting the earth, and that gives Rick kind of a warning that you'll be torn apart by teeth or bullets, and that there's really no point. And Rick's talking about the prison and kind of how safe it is or how great it is, and the way Morgan says to him like in a condescending way, or he says to him, "Is that where your wife died?" And that one's kind of a really kind of like an eye-opening, And if you look at the end of what happened at the prison as well, too, if you have something you want, someone else just wants to take it. Morgan is in a pretty defeated state right now. He's feeling like there's almost no way to win, right? Even if you get a place like the prison, people are still dying. He still couldn't protect his wife. And then at the same time, if you get a good spot, someone else is going to want to come and take it from you. And that's exactly what happens in season 4. when you have the governor that attacks the prison and just destroys the whole damn place down, right? So is what it is. So Rick's saying, you know there's a chance, you're not seeing things right, you can come back from this, I know you can. There's a lot of lines in this part right here that they actually used for the season 6 trailer, which is part of what made season 6, I think, the trailer especially it's one of my favorite trailers for any season, and some of these lines that they used kind of in that trailer are just really special to me. It's just really cool to hear kind of the lines, like where they took them from. They took those lines in the trailer for season 6 from this episode, because there's just some really great ones. So Morgan pretty much explains to Rick that he's not going to do it because he has to clear. So he's basically, his identity right now, or what he thinks he has to do, is to clear everyone, because, and you can see kind of, just how much thought was put into this. He didn't put down his wife when he had the chance, when he could have done it. He let it go. He was selfish, like there wasn't going to be a reckoning, and as a result, for not clearing, for not killing his wife, it cost him the life of his son, because he couldn't do it. When his son saw her, he couldn't shoot, he couldn't fire. It was too emotional for him. And then in no time, she was on him. So, and that was it. So it's really great stuff. I mean, in terms of like everything that Gimple did, I think with Morgan was just incredible. He really took a character from the comics that's just kind of like this crazy loony type of character, and he really kind of just broke that down, created some interesting kind of gimmicks or ideas for him, booby traps and this whole thing, and this whole mission that he's kind of created in his own mind to clear out everything, and that's his purpose, is just to clear, and that he learned this because of what happened to his son and his wife, and not having cleared before, and now he has to, because otherwise something real bad's going to happen and he's going to die or something of the sort. So it's really great stuff, man. At the end we can see Morgan still clearing. As they're going, Carl tells him that he's sorry, and Morgan says, "Don't ever be sorry, son," right? Or "Son, don't ever be sorry." And they leave. You have the kind of the mention of Rick seeing things, and Michonne kind of talking with him about that, and Rick tells her that she better drive because he sees things, which is pretty funny. Then we get the song "Lead Me Home." We get to see the hitchhiker's bag and all that kind of thing, and that rolls out the episode on the way back to the prison, back to our kind of regular storyline now with lots of guns, so that the survivors at the prison can defend themselves. So, oh man, this episode, man. I mean, this is like, again, it's kind of painfully nostalgic. There was not many people complaining at this time in the show. I mean, there were still some complaints because people just love the series so much they wanted to see. They wanted to see as much as they could, and sometimes if they filled an episode with a Morgan story arc, some people didn't like it because they wanted to see the end of the governor versus the prison in that. But I mean, it's great, man. I really love this episode a lot. This one has a special place in my heart for me because it's just one of my favorite from the first few seasons for sure is Clear. Really cool to see, the three, right? Because you have kind of, and afterwards, of course, Rick and Michonne get together, so they become kind of like a family with Carl, and then Judith is added on there as well, too. But it's just really cool to see the three of them kind of go off on this kind of gun-searching adventure, run into Morgan, and then to get to see what kind of state Morgan is in. So I am really looking forward to Fear the Walking Dead. I really am. I can't wait to see what they do with Morgan in that. I'm hoping it's the prequel version. I'm hoping it's prior to Clear, because I think that would be so sweet. But if you're looking for a lead to pull a series, you can't ask for much more than Lennie James. I mean, he is amazing. And in this episode, you really get to see it, man. You get to see some of the best stuff that he's probably done in the series, and some of my favorite stuff where he really embraces the role of kind of this a man that's very similar to Rick in the beginning. Has a wife, has a son, wants to protect them, wants to help them, wants to save them, and he totally fails, whereas Rick, well, now he has, too. It's been kind of paralleled now. Even though Rick kept his alive, got a little bit more time, like Morgan said, to live that, and until eventually, the end for both of them. So, in terms of score for this episode, I think years ago I gave this one like a perfect 10. I'm pretty sure I did. And, even though the knife goes in a little further than it probably should, I mean, I don't want to take away from it. This is really one of the best episodes of The Walking Dead ever. Really wicked one to go back and watch if you guys haven't seen it for a while. Check it out. Just to prep for Fear, season 4. It's not a bad thing, and I'll be really sad, man, if they kill Morgan off in this next half of The Walking Dead, because after the death of Carl, it's like, he's another super important character that really added to the series and was just handled brilliantly from, the actor, and then also what he was given to work with, I think was really great as well too. So that'll be it for this throwback review, guys. If you liked it and you want to see more throwback reviews, send through like an episode number, a special. It's got to be special ones though. I'm not going to do throwback reviews to just like any episode of Walking Dead. It's got to be one that's like, either one of the best ones ever or just like a special episode for you. What episodes would you like to see? What do you think we're going to see with Morgan? Will it be the prequel Morgan or a sequel type Morgan idea after Walking Dead, Fear the Walking Dead events with a time skip? Let me know what you guys think. Great episode, quite the mind trip to watch it again. And if you guys haven't seen it for a while, I'd suggest, take a look. If you got it or you got Netflix or whatever, I don't know if they have it on Netflix, but check it out and see if, give it a watch tonight if you want to, guys. Why not, man? So that'll be it for this one. Leave your comments below, guys. Let me know what you think. If you like this video, please thumb it up below. You can share, you can favorite. If you're new to the channel, you want to subscribe, I would appreciate it, and you can do it. You can subscribe at the bottom. That's it for this one. I'll see you guys again soon for another video. As always, it's Trev, and I'm saying peace. See you guys soon.